Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. For Thursday, November 3rd, I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Northwestern game is in 2 days, the game against Michigan in 23 days. I'm back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center with Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We just did the midweek interviews for Ohio State players, talked to a whole bunch of Buckeyes, talked to a lot of defensive backs, a couple offensive linemen. So you're going to be hearing a lot about the defensive backs and offensive linemen today. So that'll be the theme of the show. We'll just kind of run through some notes here, Kevin. Let's just start. What was the most interesting thing you heard all night?
I would say probably Denzel Burke. Talking to him, and obviously he had a slow start to the season, not a very good start to the season, and he talked about, as we would expect, really not paying attention to what people were saying on that, just keeping his head down, working at getting better. I mean, he's coming off of a much better game against Penn State, and just the focus there. One other thing that we didn't even talk about before the show, when he changed his number to 10, he didn't know that Troy Smith wore that number. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So sometimes, you got to remember Troy Smith was a generation ago.
Yeah, when you start realizing that a lot of the players on Ohio State's current team probably don't remember Terrell Pryor, you're going to pretty soon run into recruits that don't remember the 2014 national championship season. Time is undefeated. So is Ohio State, though. So they are, this is still this current group, whether young or not, still doing pretty well at football this fall. And there was some conversation about, the Northwestern is 1-7, and how do you keep your focus? Tim May asked the question. They haven't won on American soil yet. So, and their only win, of course, the season opening win over Nebraska in Ireland, which I'm starting to think meant more to Nebraska. Told us more about Nebraska than it did about Northwestern. But, Lathan Ransom talked about the fact that, you just have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on not looking ahead and improving every week and every day at practice. You have to make it about you and getting, the old get 1% better every day kind of thing. They've got to get at least 1% better. So, the Northwestern game is, no one asked about it, but the weather forecast for Saturday in Evanston is not great. Maybe the rain will be through before the game, but even if the rain is through, it's still supposed to be very windy in Chicago on Saturday. 30 to maybe gusts up to 40-mile-an-hour winds. So it'd be interesting to see how that impacts play calling and what they can do on offense and all that kind of stuff. As far as some of the other stuff we heard about, there was a lot of talk about Denzel Burke, and Lathan Ransom talked about the fact that, he is. He really admired the fact that, and Jordan Hancock as well talked about it too. They really admired the fact that Denzel Burke never really got down. Never, even when he was not having games that he wanted to have, never really got down. Never, made it something where it was an energy drain on the team. Lathan Ransom talked about the fact that he's one of the hardest workers on the team. So that really is going to make so he said it was like inevitable that he was going to bounce back. The talent's there. He's putting in the work. You're not gonna have bad results forever, and he has not had bad results forever. DeJuan Jones was asked about the breakdowns in the run game. Were you around for that? Do you remember what he said?
I did hear some of that. Yeah. Just a block away. And we saw that there were moments where it looked like, oh, if this would have happened, they would have been able to bust it. Nobody was there to sit there and cast blame. But we've all had the chance to watch the games. There were from the interior line were some misses that happened there. But it's just a matter of focusing and being able to get better from that, learning from your mistakes. And it was really good to get rolling at the end when they did pop that big Trevion Henderson touchdown run.
Yeah, and that I'm sure was a little bit cathartic for them. But it is interesting. Tony and I went back and watched that game again for the Buckeye Weekly podcast earlier in the week, and it was not just one guy. It wasn't one guy had a bad day. It was like, well, on this play Matt Jones missed a block, and on this play Cade Stover missed a block, and on this one Julian Fleming missed a block, and it was just kind of all over the place. On this one, DeJuan Jones got rolled up on by a Penn State defensive lineman and then wasn't there to pick up the blitzing linebacker. There was a little bit of everything, and it all kind of and that's football. One guy misses an assignment, and you turn a positive play into a negative play. So. That is at least a theoretically fixable thing, which is a positive. Just going through Tyleik Williams. Tyleik Williams is someone else we do not get to talk to a ton. Got to talk to him tonight, which is, that's generally an indication a guy is on the come up. He is seemingly on the come up. He made some big plays against Penn State. What'd you hear from Tyleik?
I wasn't at his table, but I heard you guys talking about. I mean, obviously on the on the fourth down play where they got the stop, where they forced a turnover on downs. From what you guys were saying, that he noticed that the offense kind of looked over to him, and at that point, that's a key. They're coming after me or whatever, and he knew he needed to slant underneath the block or whatever, and he was able to make a huge play when the Buckeyes needed that momentum shift.
Yeah, and he talked about the fact that was something that a year ago he wouldn't have, that's not something he would have necessarily picked up on, or, if he had picked up on it, you might not have known what to do about it. That's just more time in the system, and Jim, probably I don't know that he attributed it to Jim Knowles' teaching, but Jim Knowles is big on, the cerebral part of the game, so that's, that would fit very much in that cerebral part of the game thing, recognizing something that, no one is telling you this, they're just kind of, you're reading their minds a little bit, and knowing what that means, and knowing what you have to do, and then going out and executing. And, that, he said also, he's been working on consistency, just not getting tired, maintaining that stamina, and that is a better, and just understanding the defense on the whole, and that's all added up, because he's got the athleticism. They talk, Jim Knowles, every time Jim Knowles is asked about him, he always talks about the fact that he's one of the most freakishly athletic guys on the team, just great short area quickness, and for a guy that size, that is very unusual. Lathan Ransom was asked about the defensive backfield and how, you go through the whole year and they haven't had everyone healthy all at the same time. He was talking about how when if you have Cam Brown back, if you have, now you've got Jordan Hancock back in the rotation, you've got all these guys, starting to get all these guys back and healthy, how scary good that defensive backfield could be. Because they've been a very good team, they just haven't quite, they just, it's constantly been, well, this week Denzel Burke's out, and this week Cam Brown's out, and Jordan Hancock has missed a huge chunk of the season, and you had the game where they started J.K. Johnson and Jair Brown. Yeah. I mean, to you, what is the ceiling of this Ohio State secondary? How much better could they be?
I think they could be a lot better, just because there's something to be said about having the pieces, but also having the continuity of having the same pieces in more than 1 week in a row. I think could be very, could be strong for this secondary to be able to do that. I mean, we've seen all these guys flash in limited runs, and some of the runs maybe not as limited. And when you're able to sit there and get, okay, these are our two best, and then we can roll, maybe this other set out when we need to. I think that they could be really good. I think that the corner play could be right up there with some of the other positional groups, because we're not that far removed from where we're like, well, they're playing very well on defense. Corner is still a bit of a scary proposition. And I know as recently as writing in Tail of the Tape on Wednesday that I was still talking about Ohio State needs 50-50 balls to stop being 80-20 balls against them. Once this team realizes how good they can be at corner, it will be 80-20 in Ohio State's favor.
And one of the guys that one of the really key pieces that they're finally getting back is Jordan Hancock. We got to talk to him tonight as well. You can see that full interview on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. You can actually see all of these interviews in their entirety at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. But Jordan Hancock talked about the fact that this is really the first serious injury he'd ever had. He has just sort of been blessed with good health, and he said this has honestly been kind of a weird process because so much of how they were handling him was precautionary. He said he felt pretty good, but they were keeping him off the field because they wanted stuff to really get fully healed before they threw him back out there. He was always practicing, so the adjustment to game speed was not necessarily as rough as it is for some. If you're just sitting, if you're in a boot on the sideline, that adjustment to game speed can take a little while. Lathan Ransom talked about that it took him a few practices to get back up to game speed during fall camp when he finally came back after that serious leg injury during the Rose Bowl. But Hancock said before the injury, he kind of made a move, but was very, cognizant of not letting that make him get complacent. He was someone who Jim Knowles talked about as, potentially being in that starting mix even, and then he had that injury and just said it was kind of a bummer. Just he always felt confident, and he has said, there's still just a lot of little stuff he has to work on. Talking about just eye discipline and that kind of stuff. Just scrolling through here to see if there was anything else. Oh, finally, Jordan Hancock. He was asked about Caden McDonald because he grew up, the new Ohio State defensive tackle, the one-tech commitment for 2023, Caden McDonald. Jordan Hancock knew Caden McDonald growing up, so they grew up in the same area, and just said, he's gonna be a dog at Ohio State. He was after Caden McDonald pretty hard in the recruiting process, so that has paid off.
One thing on there too is people are like, oh no, talking about uncommitted recruits. If there's a pre-existing relationship there, it's there's some gray areas there. So everything's fine. Don't freak out. Don't be like checking the rule book.
Yeah, there was not a sports information director diving in slow motion. No, so it was fine. Everything was fine. You do your Tale of the Tape column every week. One of my favorite features, because if I have not, here, let's do some confession time. I have not spent a ton of time this fall watching Northwestern football, so
you're missing out.
This is we'll find out. We'll find out exactly how much I'm missing out on Saturday, but it is this is a team that I have not watched a ton of. So, who are like a couple players to know? Because this is a very different and kind of new Northwestern team. This is not. You're not going to see a ton of familiar names on there. So give people just a little, a name or two to know on that Northwestern team, and then of course they can go read the full column at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Well, I think the first name you need to know is left tackle Peter Skoronski. He's a second-year player. I kind of messed that up a little bit on my Big Me kickoff. Thought he was a third-year player, second-year player, so he couldn't have left anyway. This is year 3 actually. NFL caliber lineman. Really the lone bright spot on that line, as it is a young and not very good line. Second name you need to know, Evan Hull, who is a wide receiver, running back hybrid. I would probably put him more as a running back, but he's somebody who has enough speed that he can break a play when put in open space. Notice I haven't said anybody on the defense, and that's by design because that defense is not good.
Yeah, and it's going to be so interesting to see how this game plays out, because normally a bad defense against the Ohio State offense is just get ready for fireworks. With wind and maybe rain in the forecast, maybe that holds the fireworks down a little bit.
Well, Northwestern can't stop the run either.
Yeah, well, Ohio State hasn't been able to run the ball very well the last couple of weeks. So, and then obviously against better run defenses. But what could you see this weekend that you would say, aha, this is a meaningful piece of information?
I think that just seeing what Ohio State's able to do in the run game, if we don't see Mayan Williams, if we don't see Trevion Henderson, what do they do with true freshman Dallin Hayden? What do they do with running back / linebacker / running back Chip Trainum? What does that look like? Because at that point, a lot of that, and that's not to say that Dallin Hayden or Chip Trainum don't have a ton of talent. They're both very talented players. They ended up at Ohio State for a reason. But if you're having guys are going to be able to get out there and exploit huge runs, you're going to be able to say, well, this is because the line has obviously made some adjustments. Now you also have to remember Northwestern, I think, is like 1/10 against the run out of 131 teams, something in that neighborhood. So you're not necessarily testing against Iowa. You're not testing against Michigan or Penn State. This is against Northwestern. But I think that any sort of gains that you get in the running game is going to be something that you're going to be able to carry forward, and then to be able to build against Indiana, be able to build against Maryland, and then take it into the Michigan game. That's going to be very important when, by that point, you hope Henderson and Williams are as close to healthy as they can be at this time of the year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The top line results almost don't interest me as much as how they get there. Are they, are all the plays well blocked? Are they assignment sound in that run game, or, is it, well, a guy, someone missed an assignment, but Trevion Henderson or Dallin Hayden or Chip Trainum was athletic enough to make that guy miss and then was able to turn it into something big. So that'll be something that's interesting to watch. But yeah, anytime you get a weird weather game, it's always like, we've lived through more than a few weird weather games over the years, and the wind at Illinois, or raining or whatever, it always a little sloppy, a little weird, but always a little memorable too.
Yeah.
I've got my rain gear packed. Maybe that will be enough to scare off the rain for Saturday in Evanston. But
is that real rain gear, or is that a shower curtain?
It's real rain gear, Kevin. I'm a professional. In the strictest sense of the word, yes. But yes, it is actual rain gear. We're growing up. I'm all grown up.
Well, because we know going in that it could happen, as opposed to being caught.
Yes.
Caught literally caught in the rain.
Yes, there was that was the Minnesota trip last year where there was no rain in the forecast, and all of a sudden we landed in Minneapolis, and it's like, guess what it's going to do today? And it was like, I don't think I saw camera rain gear in the hotel lobby shop with the sodas and the candy bars, but I could check maybe. So yes, we'll hopefully not be improvised this weekend. We will definitely be improvising some things in Northwestern this weekend because we have our usual road game fun and excitement, and we'll do a hungry huddle episode. Kevin has already picked out what looks like a pretty promising place.
Yeah, we'll see.
And we'll have our usual Friday live show up there. We'll have our Saturday pregame show. We'll have our post-game show after the game, live from Ryan Field. Should be a really fun weekend. Might want to see me look like a wet dog getting out of the bath. That'll be after the game. I think there's a real possibility of that. So you have that to look forward to as well. So you can find all of that at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up, leave us a comment. Let us know. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us a score prediction in the comments for this one. But that will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.